She is the founder of Created, an unconventional skill development center based in Bahrain for children and adults. She loves book clubs, watching the sunrise, and connecting with people. DTM Saira Ranj today is going to take us in a journey with a workshop title, Making Things Up. Making Things Up with DTM Saira Ranj. Mute your microphone, please.
Wow.
Yes.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you, Tanaji. Did not realize I was on mute. I was being a good girl, but okay, here I am. It's a pleasure to meet all of you this morning, and it feels good to be back in VAT. Every now and then I'm running away. People have not seen me for a while, but I'm around, I assure you, and hence I'm here today. I will be making it short and crisp because writing is a process that takes time. You know, it's not something that you can actually do it within just 30 minutes. So I'll get very to the point. First and foremost, I hope each one of you has something to note things down, because you'll have to do a few activities today. So any pencil, pen, and paper or your tab is fine, but you'll have to do some activities. So just keep that with you. And then we proceed. The agenda, I will share my screen so that everybody can see what the agenda is like, and we'll go through the presentation accordingly. Here you go. Okay. Agenda is very simple. Why do we write is what I will address first, and how do we write creatively is what the activity will be all about. And finally, we wrap up. It's as simple as that. Let's start with why do we write? It is an interactive session, but I'll try to keep it time-based. So I'll talk about it and then we'll address questions later or during our activity session. Why do we write? The main reason why people like to write is because we want to be fully alive. Let me tell you that it's safe to say that today, more than ever in mankind, we have writers in explosion. There are more than 500 million blogs that exist. Tumblr has about 440 out of those. WordPress has another 60 million blogs. This is factual data as of August 2020. The amount of creative writing programs that have been conducted in universities, on online spaces like Coursera, all have gone through the roof. The ironical part is the fact that pursuing writing does not pay that much. It's not like a banking job. It does not pay through the roles. And another thing is, people's attention spans are so limited nowadays, and yet people like to write, or people want to write. How come? That's why we explore, why do we write? Sir Ken Robinson, who recently passed away, bless his soul, he had this idea about writing. He said, the arts especially address the aesthetic experience. What does that mean? See, the aesthetic experience is, what it means is that our senses are operating on a total high at their peak. So when you're present in that current moment, when you're resonating in the excitement of that moment and you want to fully capture it, that is what writing is about. As Toastmasters, I think we can all relate to the fact that when we stand on the stage, that split-second moment when you're already introduced, you're standing on stage and the audience is waiting for you to talk. That is a moment when you're fully alive. And that is the reason we want to write, one of the reasons. Personally, when I finish a movie, if I am totally touched, disturbed, crushed, I walk straight out of the cinema hall, which has not been 6 months now, but yeah. Out of the cinema hall, I go straight and sit down in a coffee shop. I sit down in a coffee shop and I write. And I write and I write and I write till all the thoughts that has been within me are exposed, are on paper, are captured. It is because all these thoughts that go through my body, the spectrum of emotions that I'm going through, I'm able to capture at that precise moment. It goes away after a while. So remember that we write to make ordinary moments extraordinary. It pulls us into the moment. Writing more specifically will let us see blades of grass. It makes us listen to the chirps of the cricket in the evenings. It makes us watch the shade that hits the sunlight, that hits a yard from right to left as it goes. You can actually see the moment. And sometimes when you are reading something, the picture is far more in your head. It is in your head and it is so specific, unlike a visual. A visual is for everybody to see and 99% of us perceive it in a certain way. More or less it's there. But when you're reading that written word, you create images in your head that is specific to you. That's why when we read novels and then they are converted to movies, sometimes we are mighty disappointed because it doesn't work with what's in our head. So remember, we write to be fully alive. Another reason, why do we write? There's something called consumerism. I know that everybody in this age is aware of consumerism. We eat more. We listen to music more. We consume information more than any time in history. But does it make us particularly happy? No, not really. Consumerism is rampant in today's age. However, as writers, it is our time to change the palette, a chance to change the tides. Instead of consuming something, it's up to us to put our pen to paper, our keyboards into action and make something, create something. So that essentially means we are not consuming, we are adding to it so that others can consume. And we make our mark. So making our mark basically means that human beings are essentially all about wanting to create a mark with their life, bring things, new things to life, to mold the images in our, it's a very, the way you want to change the world, subdue the earth. That's why we write. Another reason I'd like to say is it's sheer egoism. I hope you all recognize the person on the screen at the moment. It is the fact, I'm not relating her to any egoism, but what I'm trying to say is the fact that we want to be clever. We want to be able to seem clever, be able to leave our imprint. We don't live forever, but don't you think William Shakespeare lives forever? We just heard Mahatma Gandhi. Their stories live forever. It's because somebody has written them. Somebody has put them pen to paper. And that's what we want to do that for ourselves. It is not an unselfish motive, but it is a very natural motive. We want to be remembered. And so here are people like Virginia Woolf, J.K. Rowling, and we all want to make a name for ourselves, and hence we write. Another reason we write is because searching for happiness means searching for the purpose of life. We are the people who are able to contribute or make a meaning. Our job is to tell universal stories. Our job is to reveal the story of every person that we come across. And that is the reason we hold the power to write. I'm going to run you through a few quotes. I'm sure everybody here has read somewhere or the other Albert Einstein. He says, logic will get you from A to Z. Imagination will get you everywhere. So another cute quote that I really like is, a writer is someone who's taught their mind to misbehave. So today morning, are we all ready to misbehave a little bit? Well, I hope so, because that is what I'm going to do. Writing, just like swimming, cooking, cycling, it cannot be learned, and public speaking, of course, it cannot be learned without doing the activity. So creative writing is about applying the pen to the paper. Today, we shall take our imagination and travel. And how do we do that? Time to hit the board. Are we ready? Okay, perfect. Let's go. First things first, I'm going to do an exercise called Explode a Moment. Okay, it's very simple. I'll give you the brief, and after that, I'll give you a time limit of 5 minutes, and you will have to start writing on the brief. Explode a moment essentially is to take one moment and explode it. You're going to just capture that one single moment. And how do we do it? You're going to write a second by second, minute by minute description. You're also going to be very effective as you write it. I need you to be focused on what the story is going to be. It's your story, and all of us are going to have different stories. It should have a sequence of events, because otherwise there's no story happening. And it should have a cause and effect, an action followed by a reaction. What is the happening and what is the impact? How do we move forward? These are all the elements that are going to go into this explode a moment. Here's the visual I'm going to give you. 1, 2, 3. Whoops. Look at that picture. This is the picture you're going to write about, and you're going to involve all your senses. Let's get kinesthetic here. Get all your senses and write. And your topic is one vacation while I was whatever, I met the character. So start. I'm going to go ahead and time you now. We have exactly 5 minutes. Please create a story. We have 3 minutes to go.
எனக்கு வால்யூமே வர மாட்டேங்குது பாரு.
Please mute yourself. It will help. You could just mute yourself because we can hear a lot of. Yeah, thank you. We've got 2 more minutes left. Okay, pens down, everybody. Ready? Okay, I can't see many of you because I'm sharing my screen, but I can see a few of you, and we are ready to roll. Now, the activity we're going to do next is I need some of you to volunteer. We can't take everybody, but a few of you to volunteer and read out exactly what you've read. We need at least 3 people so that we get an inkling of where this activity has taken us. So I can't see anyone. I'm going to just pick my hot favorite for this item.
Deepa has raised her hand.
Deepa?
Deena raised her hand.
Okay, please go ahead, Beena. Thank you, Subhashri. I can't see everybody, so. So, Beena, could you please, Deena, could you go ahead and read what you've written?
While I was on vacation in Switzerland, I went up to the mountains because I love nature and the outdoors. I feel a certain serenity when I hike in silence. The sound of the birds, the flowing river, silence the ruminations in my head. There is only beauty in this magnificent and majestic creation. I walk in silence, just one with the forests around me. The snow-capped mountains stand in their majesty in front of me, the snow melting from the summer sun, forming lakes in between mountains at altitudes that are over 2,000 meters above sea level. I stop next to a lake to rest, to reflect on what is around me, and there I saw a young boy crouched on the lakeside. There he sat, and as he sat, a frog leaped out of the water. The look of joy and innocence only cemented the joy and the majesty of my walk and my hike in the mountains. It just told me of a beauty that is unparalleled, a majesty that is beyond description. Voila.
Lovely. Can we all give her a big round of applause? That was beautiful. I'm absolutely thrilled that one, you managed to do from A to Z the entire thing in 5 minutes. It's about applying creative constraints. We have a time limit and we force ourselves to go ahead and write within that time limit. Now, before we go on to the next person, I just wanted to let you all know, if you notice in Dina's writing, there was a vivid setting. That is one of the techniques that you need to apply when you're doing creative writing. Now, creative writing is writing that is outside of professional journalistic writing. It's not report writing, it's not academic, it's not technical. So it has to have a lot of emotional appeal. And Dina's, that particular passage that she did write up was definitely emotive. You could see that there was heavy description of where she was. We were transported to that place. There was a theme, the actual central character that I had given her. She had actually placed that character and built a sequence of events around it. So these are all the little techniques that we apply when we do creative writing. Okay, let's go on to the next person. Who else would like to read?
Me.
Okay, Archana, go ahead. Let's see how your little boy turns out.
Well, one vacation while I went on a trek on a holiday, I found myself among a group of trekkers who were seasoned. Some of them were army officers. So what happened was, on the first day, when the trek started, these officers and these 15 trekkers, they refused to listen to the leaders, especially at the time during when we had those breaks. They wouldn't listen to the team leader while they were waiting for me to catch up. So the team leader, he came up to me and said, "From now on, you are walking with me." So what he did was he held my hand and he took me running to the next point. They knew that the team leader meant real business, and that's when he got their attention, and he and the rest of the trek went off smoothly.
Okay, Archana, I just want you to read it one more time because in between you froze for a little bit of time. So if you can read from just go ahead and read in full speed, we'll be with you because you read the beginning, we got it after that.
Okay, one vacation when I went on a trek, I found myself among seasoned trekkers. There were 15 of them. In the first half, I realized that these 15 trekkers, some of them were army officers, refused to listen to the team leader. Because many of the time, while we are taking the break, these trekkers would have to wait for me to catch up. The team leader came up to me and said, "From now on, you are going to walk with me." So he came, he held my hand and took me running till the next point, so much so that those 15 trekkers found it difficult to catch up with me. That's when they realized that the team leader means business and he is going to be very strict with them. And that is when they began to listen to the team leader and the rest of the trek went off smoothly. Back to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing your piece. Did we all notice that it is completely different from what we had heard earlier? One, the setting was different. In this particular case, there was a plot and there was a character who was the team leader. You had a plot that was developed and you also had a conflict. He was not able to get everybody's attention. So a conflict was the central case in this particular story. If you notice, we are all in suspense as to who is this team leader. we are also having a little bit of humor. I'm thinking, is it a little kid who took her by the hand and walked straight up? You know, is it? Could it be? So you have a little bit of humor in there. You have a lot of imagination. We're still figuring it out. Is it true? But there is also emotional appeal. So all of this has led to this particular explosive moment. And one last person. Can we have one more person volunteering? Osama, I can see Osama. Okay, go ahead, please read.
Thank you very much and good morning. One of my vacation was in China. I was on the Great Wall. I was enjoying this historical place. I was taking many photos. I was out of the time zone. I lost the tracking of the time when I was there. I was taking thousands of photos when suddenly I saw a lady, a Chinese lady. I'm sure that she was over 80s. I wanted to take a picture for her, a photo. When I came and asked her in English, and you know, Chinese and English, they don't speak English that much. I was surprised that she speaks English. So I asked her, can I take a photo? China, Great Wall, and the Chinese lady. Then when she answered me, I said, why are you here? I told her, because it's a historical place. It's one of the 7 wonders. And it's a dream of everybody to visit this Great Wall. Now it's my turn. What are you doing here? And you are almost 80 years old. She said, for you, it's a historical place. For you, it's something that you visit once in a life, maybe. But for us as the Chinese, this is our life. This is our past, present, and future. We have many different Chinese language, many dialects, many territories, but we have one great wall. We are proud of this one. And when I walk on the wall, I believe that I'm gaining my life again. Every time I walk on the wall, I was shocked with the answer. But yes, she has a right. It's part of their life. It's part of their history. It's part of their past, current, and future for the kids to build reality to their country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Osama. So what we notice in this particular story is the fact that he focused on the words. One vacation while I met so-and-so is what he focused on. The focus was not on the picture. So on that, I mean, you had both. So whatever you would like to use, that is what you use. And Osama used this sentence. If you notice, he has taken an emotional appeal with this particular setting also, very vivid setting. They were in China, the Great Wall was explained, and he's talking about this 80-year-old woman that he met and he's having a conversation with. If you notice, this particular one had a dialogue also and a point of view. So you saw this side and you saw that side. So all of this are various techniques that we employ when we do creative writing. We have now to run you through the actual thing. You've already done it, but I just want to show you exactly what it is. Character development and plot development. Both these things were there in most of your stories. A vivid setting, like I talked. Underlying theme. I did give you all a theme and you all took it to different places through your imagination. A point of view. In Osama's story, you could clearly see the point of view and from this side and from that side. He got around into a dialogue and moved the scene forward. Yeah, there you go, dialogue. Humor. I found a lot of humor in Archana's story, but we can develop that further, make it more specific. You know, in this particular, it was subtle humor. Figures of speech. Okay, none of us have actually touched into figures of speech. You had just 5 minutes, so I guess it's a question of practicing to bring those kind of things in. I'll explain in detail. Imaginative language. All of us use certain degrees of imaginative language in this particular case. And of course, there was an emotional appeal. What is very different in creative writing as compared to report writing and things are emotions. It is extremely important for us to bring in the emotional appeal. That is how you engage the reader. and of course, heavy description. We did have that also, I think particularly in Dina's case and Osama's as well. We saw the whole visual appeal of the entire place was explained through description. So these are the different techniques. Now, when it comes to creative writing, the number one thing that we have to engage in is write, write, and write. And how do we write? We have to have different writing prompts. Right now, we're in a session, I'm discussing with you, and I'm giving you prompts. Like the first one was a creative prompt. It was an explore the moment prompt. Now I'm going to give you another prompt. I will also explain to you how we can come up with prompts. Most of us are Toastmasters. I'm assuming all of us are. We can write a speech. We can deliver a speech. But to find a topic is usually quite difficult for many of us. And that is exactly the case for writing prompt. And I'll explain how that can be helped in a very simple manner. Okay, so we're going on to next, writing. Here we go. We talked about, sorry, before we get into the language aspect, before we get into the next activity, as Toastmasters, I know that all of us have gone into all these figurative languages, basically how we use, tools and techniques that can help in our writing. You have, I'm not going to explain in detail because most of us are aware of this. And if you have any questions, you can ask me right at the end. I'm touching upon alliteration, hyperbole, idioms, metaphors, onomatopoeias, personification, and similes. These are all things that we can inject into our writing to make it more interesting, to give it more color, to give it more vibrancy. In cases onomatopoeia, when we write anything, if you have an action-filled, sound-filled voice, suddenly everything comes alive. Ah, what's that? You know, things like that. When you put those things in writing, you can actually see the voices, hear those things. Maybe it's panic, maybe it's exhilaration. Whatever it is, it comes alive with all these different tools that we employ. They are away from the normal, usual, mundane language that we use. So when I send you the presentation, then you can keep these in mind. But obviously, we also have, I think, using how to write in our projects also goes through these aspects of writing. We go on to the next. I'm going to give you a creative prompt. Ready to write? Okay, here we go. I need you to write 150 to 300 words. It's again 5 minutes. And your prompt is, write a fairy tale or any story you've read from the villain's perspective. So pick a very simple story. Maybe something that you've read in your childhood, maybe something that comes to you instantly. Write a fairy tale or other story you've read, but this time from the villain's perspective. One thing a lot of my students do is Red Riding Hood. We've all heard Red Riding Hood from her point of view. Let's do it from the other, from the wolf's perspective. Up to you. 1, 2, 3, start.
It's 3 days back.
Can I ask a question, Saira?
Yeah, sure.
So, is the villain the narrator here when we are writing?
Yes, you can take it that way. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, the perspective should be from the villain's side. So can be the narrator, can be, how he, she feels that they are a victim. I don't know. Don't want to get into anything more. I leave the imagination to you.
Just want to check one thing. Are we going to have a time for question and answer?
Yes. Are we okay with the timing, Rashid?
Because I have only one question.
We do have questions in the end.
3 days back.
We are over time, so.
We are over time?
30 minutes is over. We are 33 minutes now.
Jeez, I'm sorry, Rashid, I did not know. Do we
So
want?
Okay.
sure.
Okay,
So
then
why
what I
don't
will.
After this activity, we can have 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes.
okay,
Okay, perfect, perfect.
great,
Sounds
great.
good.
Thank you.
I'm generous. Anyways.
As usual.
Wow, that was quick. We've got another 3 minutes to go.
There was this.
Okay, with just about a few more seconds. All right. Pens down, everybody. Ideally, I would have liked. Yeah. Ideally, I would have liked everybody, at least I would have liked a few people to read out their pieces, but since we are, short on time, sorry about that, my bad. We will not be sharing it here live, but you can definitely email it or send it across as minutes, and we'll make sure that you'll get some feedback on it, because this is a very interesting activity as well. It changes perspective of the writer. Now, to quickly sum up, before I get into question and answers. Okay, there are a few other prompts. Remember I mentioned that finding a topic is the toughest thing. How do you give yourself a prompt? How do you just decide what to write? Writing is something you should be disciplined about, because if you want to change and increase the fluidity of your writing, get more creative, you need to do it at least 5 times a week. Maybe even 15 minutes, but 5 times a week makes a difference. So how do we find that 15 minutes, and how do we just write? I'm sure most of you all have books in your house, maybe a bookcase. So what you have to do is pick 3 numbers, okay? Pick 3 numbers. I have picked 12, 45, and 7. So what do? You go straight and pick the 12th book in your bookcase. Pick it up. Go to page number 45 and line number 7. That's it. Read that line, take that as your topic, that is your writing prompt, sit down and write it. So this way you can create something that does not obstruct your thinking in any manner. Just pick up something, use the 3 numbers, any 3 numbers, and start writing. That's one of the simplest way to do it. And I don't want to take up more time. I'm ready for question and answers. Just remember, word after word after word is power. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, TM Saira, for an amazing workshop that you have presented for us today. It was truly beneficial and I have truly enjoyed it throughout, and I'm sure everybody feels the same. Now, it's the time for the question and answer segment. Do you have any question for DTM Saira? DTM Usama?
Yes, good morning, Toastmasters, DTM Saira. Thank you very much for this beautiful, lovely presentation. I have one question. In your techniques, you mentioned figures of speech.
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on this one? I could not understand it.
Figures of speech, we're talking about figurative language that departs from the normal meaning. So the PowerPoint presentation, which I mentioned to you about language based on alliteration. Like say, I'll give you an example. You know, in figurative language, we're talking about these different things like alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of a sound in a sentence or a series of sentences. For example, Samantha soared down the street on a sleek skateboard. That is one word where we are, one sentence where you're applying alliteration. Now, there could be, like I mentioned, onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is when you put sounds into, like the jet zoomed across the sky, you know, when you put sounds into it. So that is another figurative language that you apply. Maybe personification. The tree invited us to come and play. A tree doesn't really invite you to come and play, but it's the idea that something non-human is human. It becomes personification. So these are the different figurative languages that we apply as techniques into our writing. Is that good?
Thank you.
I have one question for you, DTM Saira.
Yeah.
See, typically what happens when we write, we always fall back on our own experiences or on our own immediate places where we have seen. See, if you're actually seen, all the people who are actually narrated were from the stories which either they had experienced or they have been to those places. But how do you overcome this? Say, for instance, I really want to write something which is totally out of my own area of experience or places which I have not been.
Right. See, there are 2 things. One is you increase your reading, makes a big difference, because when we read, we usually stick to a genre that we are comfortable with. Like I personally, I like a lot of horror and I like suspense, thrillers, you know, those are the kind of things I read. There are some people who are completely into romance. So it just depends. So you stick to that genre, you will have only that much of exposure. So reading different genres, picking up authors that you know you don't know and you may find it boring, but read the thing from the beginning to the end as much as you can. That makes a difference. Reading changes your perspective. Second, observation. If you go and sit in a cafe and just, not right now, but yeah, anywhere, maybe in your balcony, look out, observe how things are and jot it down. Jot it down, not just like we did the activity from the villain's perspective. So jot it down as, how would Sundar think? Would he have the same thoughts? How would your son's teacher think? Would they have the same thoughts? So put yourself in different roles and see what you come up with. So you're going into your imagination from their perspective, because we all know how each person reacts is so different, yeah? And another thing is, of course, I would highly recommend is joining a writing club, because they consistently, we meet like Bahrain Writers Circle meets about 3 times a month. So each time you have different ways of writing explained to you, and we apply them. So you have to keep writing, and that's how you develop it. I hope that helps.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question, DT and Saira. Thank
Sure.
you. It was really a fulfilling experience listening to you and getting those ideas out of you. It was just wonderful. But I just wanted to ask you one thing. I'm being selfish here, rather. You gave us one prompt, let's say creative prompt to go by.
Yes.
Do you have many more?
Oh yeah, loads. Loads.
One more. Give me one more at least.
Okay, I'll give you one. Basically, write an angry letter to an inanimate object. Okay. So basically you're taking an expression and you're relating it to an inanimate object, and then go ahead. Or you could also pick anything on your desk and write an autobiography about the person, about the item. So my phone could talk to me, my flask could talk to me, the kitten that I have right now here could talk to me, so that's another prompt.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure. Rashid, are we okay? I don't want to cut into Juju's time. That would be horrible.
You're already in his time, but it's 5 minutes. You have 2 minutes more for question and answers.
All right. I'm good with, if y'all are good, then we could move on. And please feel free to get in touch with me anytime, and I can help you out if we would like to have a further dialogue on this.